Guten Morgen, meine Damen und Herren. Ich bin in Deutschland. This is Germany behind me, the city of München, which I cannot pronounce in proper German. And I am still here, still in Europe, still on tour for the next couple of weeks. Today I'm going to Domicilium, and Thursday I'm heading off to England, where I'll do two big events in Hebden Bridge in Yorkshire, lovely Yorkshire, and two big events in London, which I'm saying like a Liverpudlian saying London. We moved down to London because it was no good in Liverpool. We couldn't be the Beatles in Liverpool. We had to be the Beatles in London. So anyway, that's where I am. International man of the world, drinking water. Why am I drinking water? Because yesterday, I think it was yesterday, because all time's all screwed up for me, I suffered one of my worst kidney stone events in my whole life. Woke up at 3 in the morning in a hotel in Frankfurt called the Monopole, which looks nice from the outside but isn't quite as nice in the inside. It was blazing hot. I had this, I should have called a Krankenwagen, which is an ambulance for those of you who don't speak the Deutsch. But I didn't. I just decided to tough it out, and I text messaged my sister's ex-husband, who's a doctor, and he basically kind of diagnosed me over text, which you probably shouldn't do, but I think he was right because I've had kidney stones before. And it was horrible. So the next day, I had the pleasure and honor of meeting Mr. Thomas Metzinger, author of this book, The Ego Tunnel, which is really good. It's a bit dense and philosophical if you can't deal with dense philosophical type prose, but it's simple enough for a normal non-philosophy major to get through. But about the idea that the ego is an illusion, which is one of the main ideas behind Buddhism too. So good book, highly recommend it. And Mr. Metzinger is a cool guy. He looks exactly like David Byrne, to the point where if I saw him walking down the street in LA, I would be telling everybody the next day, "Hey, I saw David Byrne! I can't believe it, I saw David Byrne!" But I probably didn't. It was probably Thomas Metzinger, who's better than David Byrne. So the news that is making the news in America these days, it seems like the biggest subject is the suicide of Anthony Bourdain. Before the news hit that he'd committed suicide, probably about all I could tell you is about Anthony Bourdain is he was one of those cooking show guys. I really didn't pay much attention to that world, but I've seen some of the tributes to him, and he seems like a really interesting guy. One of the things that kind of struck me in all of the talk on the internet that I emerged to after a week-long retreat was a lot of the things people say. One of the sort of tropes that goes around for trying to talk people out of committing suicide is it gets better. It's a kind of thing. I think there might even be a hashtag, hashtag it gets better or something. And if you said that to a guy like Anthony Bourdain, that would probably just depress him even more. Because here's a guy who has everything. He has a multi-millionaire, probably famous, probably lives in a great house or lived in a great house with all the amenities and everything anybody could want. And I can only assume still felt like life was shit. And that's kind of one of the crux of the Buddha's great message to the world was life is shit no matter where you come from. He, as his example, was born a prince, and he had everything that he could possibly want in his time period. Probably Anthony Bourdain had 200 times as much stuff or access to wealth and things and pleasure as the Buddha did as a prince in India, but still same thing. Things are shitty no matter how you are. So that's what makes me a little dubious of the "it gets better" hashtag. In a sense, when I was a suicidal teenager, that probably might have helped me a little bit because things did get better. But even these days, in the state that I am in, the hashtag or the trope or whatever you call it of "it gets better" wouldn't do much for me. because I mean, even though I'm not fabulously wealthy like Anthony Bourdain and everything else, I'm doing pretty well, as far as things go. I mean, I'm not rich. I'm like lower middle class, but whatever. But I don't have, there's not this sort of like material things that I desire that I can't get. I kind of keep my desires low enough that what I usually want I can get, which is generally consists of old records and books and things. So that one isn't, to me, the answer if you're looking for the answer to suicide. And of course, there is no one single answer for everybody. But for me, it was quite different. It wasn't, it gets better. It was, look at this. Look at this and what you're living now, whatever it is, and see it clearly for what it is. And in that sense, even though I am a person who still gets suicidal ideation, as the psychologists call it, it still comes up here, goes, yeah, you should kill yourself, Brad. You should kill yourself, Brad. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I don't pay much attention to that anymore because I realize that's just a thing that's going on in my head, and my head is processing whatever it processes, and the conscious experience of that is this sort of ideation. You just sort of you sort of do this thing in your brain, and most of us do it without realizing, of a thing, an experience, a feeling, or whatever comes up, and you try to put words to it. You kind of do this automatically. Whether you've been sitting Zazen for 30 years or not, you'll do this automatically. What helps of doing Zazen a lot is you notice the automatic nature of this. You notice that you keep trying to define it. And I feel like suicide is often a response to a kind of intelligence, or a kind of smarts, if not exactly intelligence, which looks at things and compares them to the way you think they ought to be, or the way they used to be, or how they could be, and goes, ugh, this is awful, I can't deal with this anymore, and then you jump out a window. You know, the one thing I've seen that people throw around that I think might be somewhat useful is suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and that's usually the case. You can work on things and get around the need for suicide most of the time, I think. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you if your friend is feeling suicidal, except as a person who feels suicidal from time to time. Sometimes the thing to do is just hang out with your friend. Yesterday, after the kidney stone and not sleeping and kind of going, oh, Jesus Christ, I got 2 more weeks of being on the road, and it's difficult, and I got to deal with stuff, I'm just, everything around here, like, what the hell is this? I don't know. What the hell is this? I actually know what this is because I can read that word. But you travel and you're like, everything is weird and unfamiliar, and it really gets you tired. No matter how hard you try not to. And I'll get down and depressed. And last night, my girlfriend, the wonderful Adriana, she Skyped me. And as soon, like the minute her face was on the screen that I'm looking at while I'm talking to you folks, I felt better. Just a little contact with somebody from home just wiped a lot of that away. So, try to be with people, try to talk to them. Don't necessarily talk them out of their suicide. You don't have to talk about their suicidal feelings, because most of us who have those feelings don't really want to talk about it. I mean, if you draw us out a little bit, sometimes we can talk about it, and maybe that helps a little. But in general, just speaking for myself, I don't want somebody to come along and go, Brad, I hear you're feeling suicidal. It's like that song, that institutionalized by suicidal tendencies, I just want a Pepsi. All I wanted was a Pepsi, and she wouldn't give me one. That's how I feel, so just bring me a Pepsi, but don't bring me a Pepsi because I don't like that stuff anymore, but bring me Diet A&W root beer. That's what I would really love, and that's something you cannot get in Europe anywhere. So that's my little message. If you want to join me in Hebden Bridge in lovely Yorkshire, or in London, there's still tons of space available. If you want to rush to the domicilium thing that's starting tonight, I'm sure we can make room for you because it's a very light turnout at that one. We don't know why it turned out so small, but it's a nice place and I would recommend going to it. All those things are open. PayPal and Patreon for donations. I'm making a bit more than I spend while doing this trip, so I have to be honest about that, but I'm not getting rich, so those PayPal and Patreon is basically my salary. So that's how I get by. Normal people get paid with a paycheck every week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. I get paid by you folks on Patreon and PayPal, and that's how I buy my groceries and stuff. So thanks a lot for watching. Hope everything is good with you, and I'll talk to you next time I can. Bye.